Let's start with something you're not ready to hear, but it's too late, you clicked, you're here. And now there's no turning back. Because what you're about to discover contains truths that modernity has buried under tons of noise, posturing, and empty appearances. Have you ever wondered why everything feels more artificial? Why relationships no longer last? Why the word loyalty sounds archaic? Why emotional depth seems dead in this era of filters, digital validation, and expressed love? Do you know what's most unsettling? That this isn't an accident. None of it is a mistake. It's the result of a selective, but not natural, evolution. An evolution designed to weaken what is essential. And you know where it's most visible? In the figure of the woman. Yes, in how she has changed, in what has been lost, in what she once was and no longer is. Don't get it twisted. This isn't about romanticizing the past. It's not about nostalgia. It's about an uncomfortable truth you already sensed. Because even if you never say it out loud, you feel it. Women from before had something that's now scarce, a silent strength, a brutal capacity to hold without showing off, to love without asking, to endure without demanding recognition. They were rock and refuge. Today, everything is about the image, the immediate impact, the desire to be seen, more than understood. Do you dare to look beyond the obvious, to scratch the polished surface of the present and see what we've destroyed in the name of freedom? Because what we call progress might actually be a more sophisticated form of decay. Here comes the part that burns. We've been taught that every change is good, that every evolution is an advancement. But Schopenhauer warned us before anyone else. When the feminine nature strays from its essence, it destabilizes the entire world, not as punishment, but as an inevitable consequence. And what if he was right? What if what we call empowerment is, in many cases, a complete disconnection from depth, from patience, from the capacity for real emotional giving? This isn't about superiority or crude comparisons. It's about an essence that has been blurred by empty promises and roles imposed by a culture that applauds what shines and discards what nourishes. There's a question that haunts you, even if you never say it out loud. Why is it that, with more freedom than ever, there's more emptiness than ever? Why, if everything is more accessible, is commitment now a relic? Why, if women can be anything they want, do they seem more lost, more anxious, more alone? No one will say it out loud, but you know, something broke. And it didn't just break in them, it broke in all of us. Because when the feminine figure is corrupted, when it stops being a guiding light and becomes a distorted reflection of the modern ego, the collective psyche trembles. Men and women crawl emotionally, searching for bonds that no longer exist because the foundations have been demolished. The unsettling part isn't the change itself. It's the speed of the change, the shallowness with which it's celebrated, and the collective amnesia that enables it. Women of the past weren't more valuable because they were perfect. They were more valuable because they were real. They knew what it cost to sustain a family, an emotion, a promise. They were rooted in a truth deeper than the latest trend. Now, criteria are volatile. Love is measured in views. Dignity is traded for digital approval. Patience is seen as weakness. And the darkest part? No one seems to want to talk about it, because saying it means betraying the modern dogma, because saying it is a threat to the official narrative. But someone had to say it. This video isn't a tribute to the past. It's an autopsy of the present. We're going to cut this wound open. We're going to touch where it hurts. And if you're not ready to question everything you thought you knew about female psychology, about connection, about a woman's real value, then stop now. Because what comes next isn't meant to please you. It's meant to wake you up. We're going deep, to the root. We're going to talk about the collapse of the feminine soul. Yes. We're going to do it from a truth nobody wants to look at. Because it's uncomfortable, because it's visceral, because it's real. And once you hear this, you'll never see the world the same. Have you ever wondered why uncomfortable silence has become the norm in so many relationships? Why we can't talk anymore without someone feeling attacked, hurt, offended? Because we've changed the meaning of connection. Emotional connection used to be a construction. Now, it's an exchange of validation. Two people once came together to resist the storm. Now they separate if it rains. And it's not just ego or lack of love. It's a deep, psychological shift in the emotional role of the modern woman. Detachment is no longer protection, it's a facade. Coldness is no longer elegance, it's a shield. And misunderstood independence has become an excuse to not share the emotional weight that a real bond requires. Schopenhauer saw it. When the desire for freedom detaches from responsibility, the soul fragments. Women of the past knew something that today has been lost. That true emotional strength isn't about pretending you don't need anyone, but about being capable of giving, holding, and receiving without it destroying your core. Today, many have confused empowerment with emotional uprooting. And it's not their fault. The system made it that way. The culture, the narrative, the industry, the networks. An entire arsenal designed to convince them that deep feeling is weakness, that showing tenderness is betrayal, that emotional dependence is regression. And here comes the heaviest part. When every deep bond is seen as a threat to freedom, who's still willing to truly love? And do you know what that does to a man? Disorientation. Total confusion. He no longer knows if he's with a woman or with a mask, if it's a real bond or a short-term emotional contract, if he can lean on her, or if he's being constantly judged by an invisible checklist. The result is obvious: weaker connections, repressed emotions, loneliness disguised as self-sufficiency, a generation of people who sleep next to someone, but live alone. And that dissonance isn't free. It has a price, a high one. But it doesn't end there, because when the emotional collapses, the psychological becomes contaminated. Women of the past didn't just know how to sustain relationships. They knew how to sustain themselves. They didn't need constant approval, likes, or motivational quotes. They had something far more valuable, an internal compass. They knew who they were without needing the eyes of others. Today, that compass is broken in many. They move by what shines, what gets applause, what is expected. And in that movement, they lose identity. And what has no identity cannot grow roots. And without roots, everything collapses with the first wind. Do you know what's darkest? This transformation hasn't brought more happiness. It has brought anxiety, existential emptiness, endless comparison. What's the point of more freedom if that freedom leaves you every night with a screen as your only emotional refuge? What's the point of being able to choose anyone if you can't hold on to anyone, or allow anyone to hold on to you? We've created women who can conquer everything except inner peace, and that's where the true tragedy begins. The modern woman has become an expert in external self-sufficiency, but increasingly clumsy in handling her inner world. There are more women medicated, in therapy, experiencing breakups, searching for meaning, but fewer with emotional truth. We talk about self-love, but it's built on comparison. We talk about empowerment, but it's measured in likes. We talk about freedom, but live chained to what others think. And all of this, whether you like it or not, has a side effect. It has changed the kind of woman that appears in a man's life, and it has also changed the man. It has stripped him of his place. It has turned him into a silent supporting actor in a play where he no longer knows his role. Because if a woman stops being a woman, a man no longer knows how to be a man. Not because he can't, but because the mirror is broken. This is not nostalgia, it's a diagnosis, and you can't heal what you refuse to name. No one wants to talk about this because it's uncomfortable, because it's politically incorrect, because it hits nerves we don't want to touch. But someone has to say it. Women of the past were worth more, not because they were submissive, but because they were deep, because they didn't hollow themselves out on the inside just to shine on the outside, because they knew the real power isn't in dominating, but in connecting. They could destroy you with a word, but chose to build you with a look. Today the woman has gained rights, spaces, presence, and that is fair, necessary. But she has lost something just as valuable, her invisible power, her real magnetism, her ability to transform without imposing, her gift to be the emotional center of the home without losing herself. And we've sacrificed it in the name of false progress. Progress that screams freedom but creates loneliness, that proclaims autonomy but breeds disconnection, that celebrates the superficial and kills the essential. So, now what? Are we going to keep applauding the destruction of the deep feminine just because it's uncomfortable to say otherwise? Or will we have the courage to look into the abyss and recognize that what we lost was sacred because yes, it was. Authentic femininity isn't measured in brute strength, but but in emotional containment, in the power of silence, in instinctive understanding, in emotional intelligence that doesn't need to be explained to be felt. Women of the past had that. And that's why they were worth more, because they didn't need to prove it. Their essence spoke for them. This isn't an attack, it's a plea. It's the silent cry of a generation of men who no longer know how to approach without being rejected, without being judged, without being treated as disposable. It's the echo of a masculinity that has lost its natural complement. And that complement wasn't a soulless strong woman or a brilliant woman without tenderness. It was a whole woman, complete, human, of flesh, bone, and truth, not emotional plastic. We'll continue because there's much more to say, and you won't like it, but it will be necessary, deeply necessary. And here we are at the edge of the abyss. You made it this far, and that means one thing. Something inside you already knew this truth existed. Something inside you, no matter how buried under modern noise, recognized the echo of what once was sacred. Because this isn't just about women. It's not just about men. It's about humanity. About the emotional essence we're letting die in exchange for speed, quick validation, and false autonomy that only brings more anxiety and less meaning. Do you feel it? That subtle emptiness you can't fill with another story on Instagram, another match that leads nowhere, another cliché empowerment quote that doesn't save you from insomnia? The woman of the past was worth more, not out of nostalgia, but because of her inner structure, because she was built from silence, from resilience, from connection to something deeper than the ego. And that can't be recovered by reading Pinterest quotes. It has to be trained, revived, embodied. But to do that, you need courage. The courage to look in the opposite direction of the noise, to get off the train of everything goes, to seriously ask yourself, what am I building with the way I connect? What am I leaving behind out of fear of truly feeling? What have I normalized that's actually disconnecting me from myself? And now I want you to hold on to this. True value doesn't lie in how loud you can shout who you are, but in how much you can hold your truth without needing to shout it. Women of the past didn't need to declare their worth. They were worthy, because what is real doesn't need to be validated. It speaks for itself. It's felt. It's respected in silence. And that has been lost in all the noise. But if you made it here, you can still return to that center. You can still rebuild from essence. Because there is no revolution more powerful than a woman who decides to be whole again. Not perfect, but whole. And if you're a man, listen to this. Don't look for a perfect woman. Look for a woman who's made peace with her depth. One who doesn't need you to live, but chooses to share her soul with you. One who understands that true power isn't in dominating you, but in inspiring you. Because if you find that, you're not facing a partner, you're facing a miracle. And today, miracles are rare. So, here's the deal. If this video stirred something in you, if it forced you to look where you didn't want to, if it woke up a corner of your mind you'd silenced, subscribe. Not for the algorithm, for yourself. Because we're going to keep talking about what no one wants to touch. Because this wasn't a monologue, it was a mirror, and I want you to use it. And in the comments, leave this phrase, truth hurts, but it frees. Say nothing else, just that. That way I'll know you made it to the end, that you didn't close the tab when it started to sting, that you didn't hide when the wound began to bleed. Because when the truth stings, it means it's alive. And now I'm leaving, not with a thanks for watching. I'm leaving you with a hole, small, annoying, uncomfortable. Because that hole is the proof that something inside you moved. And if it moved, you can no longer pretend nothing happened. So, now choose. Will you cover it up with more noise again? Or will you finally listen to what's screaming inside you? We'll see each other in the next video, or not. That depends on how much truth you're really willing to face. Until then, be brutally real.